All right. I do know that there are just a couple tables in the back that will be served, but we thought it best to resume. And so this panel, panel number 3, the title or the topic is The Future of Radio. I would like to invite my panelists, some of whom will be here live in the room and others will be joining us online. Mr. Brian Schmidt, Acting Managing Director, IRIE FM. Let us welcome him to the stage. And Mr. Steve Billings, CEO, Sun City Radio. We welcome him to the stage as well. Portmore for sure. Our virtual panelists, we'd like to welcome Miss Bernie O'Neill, Project Director, Project Office, World DAB. Mr. Garfield Bourne, founder and presenter of SoundChat Radio. Mr. Jorge Chavez, Senior Manager of Broadcast Products, Xperi HD Radio. And Mr. Al Robinson, founder and CEO of Mello Media. I will now hand over, please make them welcome. We'll soon get them up on the screen. And our esteemed panelist, who has the task of keeping it all together, connecting all the dots for the future of radio, is Mr. Don Dobson, Senior Director, Monitoring Compliance and Investigations, BCJ. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Terry Carell, and good afternoon, everyone. I would say welcome back from your halftime break, but I see that it's still in session, so I'm hoping you are enjoying. It's my pleasure today to guide this conversation on the future of radio. This session it's not about whether radio survives. It's about what radio becomes, how radio reclaims what only radio can do, how it defines local in a borderless world, and how does it become genuinely social rather than just existing on social platforms. My role is simply to lay on the passes for my panel of expert strikers, and they will do the finishing. So let's get it started. Radio has survived television, the cassette, the CD, MP3 player, the smartphone, but AI is different. AI is different because none of those previous disruptions had the ability to replicate the one thing radio always claimed as irreplaceable, the human voice. So Garfield, I'm gonna start with you. In 2 minutes, thereabout, what does this moment force the industry to rediscover about itself? What is the next reason for radio to matter? If you're speaking, Garfield, you're on mute. We're not hearing you. All right, so technicians, we need to sort out Garfield's audio. But in the meantime, what I'll do is transition to our local broadcasters, and I'll start with you, Brian.
Thank you very much. I think what is very important for us all to recognize is that there are certain strengths that radio has. And a lot of it has to do with the personal connection. It has to do with being very relevant. It has to do with being very timely. And a lot of what radio needs to do, very interestingly, is be more like radio. That's very, very interesting, because if you look at what is happening in the podcast space is dominated internationally by radio programming. So a lot of people don't really understand what is really happening even in those spaces, right? So it's very, very important for us to understand that what makes radio important and relevant is its humanity, its connection, and so on. And we really just need to lean into that, because at the end of the day, in a lot of ways, social media and all these other different platforms are just that. They're just platforms. They're another means of distribution. And we need to lean into that and then take advantage of the specific traits and characteristics that they have. Because now radio is no longer just visual as a theater of the mind. We can now put real images to what we do in radio. So it's very important to see how we approach it. And I think that is actually a very, very simple thing to do, because we can't pretend to be what we are not. And we have a history of being excellent at what we do. And you know, it's also important to note that radio is growing worldwide. So what you're hearing and being told is actually not true. Radio is growing. In fact, in 2023, for the first time ever in the US, radio earned more than television. Right? So there's a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of naysayers who do not understand what is really happening in the radio industry. So I think that is something that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to correct and get people to understand.
Okay, Steve, your thoughts?
As it relates to what you just said, Brian, one of the things we must be cognizant of is the different patterns, the behavior of the listening audience. And one of the reasons why I think podcasting is doing so well is because the listening audience right now, they're accustomed to on-demand content. They want to consume the content when they want to, how they want to, where they want to. So that is one thing we have to understand as broadcasters. We have to be able to adapt. And as it relates to the new generation that is coming up, they are receiving radio and radio content differently. It represents something totally different to them. And let me give you an example. When my presenters are in studio, they're normally on TikTok. And when my little son has his phone up and he's on TikTok, he said, "Daddy, I'm listening to the radio." You understand me? So to him, that is what radio represents. So it's about being adaptive. It's about being where the listening audience is and being able to give them that content on demand when they want it, however they want it.
Okay, Garfield, are you with us now? Garfield is not with us. Okay, well, as soon as he's able to, we'll definitely go back to him. SoundChat Radio is an online radio station, so we're really interested in what he has to say. And he's based in the diaspora in New York. So it's now after 8 p.m. in the UK. So Bernie, I will say to you good night. And I will ask for your point of view on this moment that confronts us with AI, and what does radio need to do to remain relevant?
Hi. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
It's quite a bad echo for me. Okay, I'll continue. I'm just trying to ignore the echo. So listen, first of all, congratulations to, oh, it's really hard to talk, I'm sorry. Everything I say is coming directly back to me. I'm on the screen twice, I don't know if that's...
Oh, we're not hearing an echo, Bernie, so it would be on your end. All right, Jorge, I'll move over to you for the time being. I'll congratulate you. Mexico has advanced to the next round on 9 points. I'm sure you're happy. And we would like to hear your thoughts on how radio should respond to what could be seen by some as an opportunity that AI presents or a problem that AI confronts us with.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we're hearing you.
I don't know if you can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your invitation. And yes, we are very happy for winning Mexico yesterday. But talking about your question about AI and how can integrate for radio stations, I'm very confident that for broadcasters and the users, the content is the king. But as broadcasters, we need to add value at that kind of content. So if some broadcasters only just programming music, I mean only all the content that these broadcasters are sending, it's only music, that is the field that I think that is the field that AI can grow up. However, if the broadcasters are sharing very valuable content like news, interviews, historical events, relevant information, and so on, my understanding is that in that part, AI will only become an ally for presenters instead of their replacement, because as one of the panelists mentioned as a few minutes ago, we need to promote the content and put the content whenever the listeners are. So the listeners always is looking for or searching for new content. So if we provide add value content for that listeners, I really doesn't matter if the AI is growing. The content is the king.
Okay. And Garfield, is it third time lucky? Are you able to join us now? You're on mute, Garfield. All right. How about you, Bernie?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now, Garfield. So I was saying to you earlier, what does radio need to rediscover about itself? How does it remain relevant? How does it remain one of the media of choice in 2026?
Modern form. I've been able to build out digital radio platform here in the States that broadcasts all over the world. And the secret to my formula would just be kind of modernizing the way we present, making radio a little bit more interactive. One of the things that I feel very strong about is that nowadays with technology, people can listen to music in so many different ways. They don't need to listen to a radio station to get the music, right? So there has to be something else added to the experience that will allow people to want to be able to gravitate towards the platform that you're presenting them. I do a lot of visuals. So my platform is radio that you can actually see and also listen to. You know what I mean? And it works very, very well for me because people feel like it's an experience. So if you're asking me what does radio look like tomorrow, I don't think radio tomorrow needs to look like what radio looked like yesterday. I feel like we need to add to the experience, we need to engage more, and we need to give people a reason to want to be part of what we're presenting.
Okay, thank you for that, Garfield. And now, Bernie, over to you. Same question. What does radio need to contemplate as it's confronted with a dynamic system where audio moves freely across platforms and devices?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I still have a little
We're
bit
hearing
of
you
an
clearly.
echo. Right, I think it stopped. Oh, it just stopped. Thank you for inviting me, and congratulations, BCJ, on your 40th anniversary, and long may you live, and you're doing such important work. And congratulations on the program in this conference. We can hear already you have the answers. You're asking the right questions, I think, and you have the answers. So from a World DAB perspective, we'd say that maybe the answer is discovering or rediscovering infrastructure, not fashionable, but not in a technical sense, more in a society sense. So radio is the platform that everybody reaches. We've talked about that, we've heard about that, its resilience and its reach. And simultaneously, and there's no subscription needed, so no data plan, and etc. So AI, it can replace a person's voice for sure, but it can't, we don't believe, replicate that reach. And so that's a reason why radio matters. And you know, we've heard a lot about trust and access to radio in times of emergency. And these are very much topics that are at the core of what we're talking about at World DAB, and protecting, especially protecting radio's place in connected cars. So it's important to be everywhere where the listener is. Broadcast is doing heavy lifting across Europe, and it will do for some time, as we heard from the speaker Christy Swords earlier in the context of TV. So we're very focused on protecting broadcast radio in connected cars so that it doesn't get buried or lost. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that reinvention is important, but radio should not lose its identity. It should not lose its connection. And despite the emergence of AI, it should not lose its humanity. Now, the issue of reinvention is important because it goes beyond just formats and audiences. It's also about resilience. And radio's identity is never tested more sharply than in moments of crisis. And that brings us to the next question, which focuses on radio during times of natural disasters. Dr. Grant, earlier you mentioned that during and after Hurricane Gilbert, radio was the nation's lifeline. With Melissa, things were more complex. In the immediate aftermath, we found, though, that in some instances, radio was the only functional media available. Stations running on generators ensured that the public had valuable and critical information. But it is felt that as soon as connectivity returned, largely through the deployment of Starlink and so on, everybody sort of abandoned radio and went back to social in order to receive information. Now, whether that perception is fair or not, it's out there and it represents a real challenge. So Al, you're based in St. James, so you lived it. Tell me, what do you think radio needs to do? Well, firstly, tell me what the situation was for you on the ground, and what does radio need to do to reclaim its place as a trusted communications refuge during national emergencies?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you hearing me? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good afternoon, moderator, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. When we talk about the future of radio, the conversation often centers on technology, digital broadcasting, artificial intelligence, streaming, and connected devices. Those innovations are important, and we must embrace them. But I believe the real future of radio is not defined by technology alone. As Brian rightly said, it is defined by content, and more importantly, by connection. Here in Western Jamaica, during the recent hurricane, many of us here in the West experienced months without internet and electricity. those were nowhere in those moments. All the modern platforms we rely on simply disappeared. People turned to battery-powered radios. We distributed several solar radios. These are with panels. Several of these we distributed to communities. We went in shelters. Families gathered around a single radio just to hear the latest update. That experience reminded us of something powerful. When everything else fails during the hurricane, radio remains. So people can get music almost anywhere today. They have Spotify, they have YouTube, they have Apple Music, and countless other streaming platforms. But music is no longer radio exclusive advantage. What those platforms cannot replace is trusted local news. We discovered that for months and weeks during the hurricane, credible information, meaningful community involvement, live discussions, and personalities who genuinely understand the people they serve. And Brian touched on some of those areas. So when a hurricane approaches, when a road is closed, when elections are taking place, for example, or when a community needs a voice, people still turn to their local radio station. And that relationship is built on trust. And trust cannot simply be downloaded.
Okay, so trust begins long before there is an emergency. And radio also has the asset of reliability. So those are two things going for radio. I will throw it to you, Brian or Steve, if there's anything that you'd want to add on this point about radio in natural disasters.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Al has hit the nail on the head that what radio is very good at is building community. And because it builds community and it has trust, right? And trust is not to be undervalued, particularly in the kind of larger environment that communication environment we exist in. So the trust and the ability to build community is very important. Now, there are things that the broadcasters can do, but there are things that the government needs to do. And there's one simple one. Radio is free-to-air broadcast. And free-to-air broadcast means that people must have free-to-air access. It's not a one-handed thing. You can't have a right to the broadcast and you can't receive it. We are failing by not meeting the technical standards that every vehicle that comes into Jamaica must pick up every radio station on our frequencies. Right? That's an absolute failure. Now, I used to work at courts. Bureau of Standards will not allow you to sell a radio in an appliance store that does not get our frequencies here. Why are cars allowed to come in and not do so? Let me tell you how dangerous that is. In Melissa, most of the West was cut off. IRIE FM and Zip FM were there when most everybody was not. But only a person who had a battery radio could listen. So the kind of information that people were in their vehicles, they were being denied the access that they should have. That's an absolute failure of regulation, and that needs to be fixed. And I would call on the government that they need to do that.
Well, that's definitely something that we need to look into. And in fact, we may explore it some more as I transition now to the infrastructure side of things. And Bernie and Jorge, I'm going to bring you guys in. But before I do, I want to say that Jamaica has not yet made any decision where digital radio broadcasting is concerned, and there's no decision on the table at this time. But as you can appreciate, as a forward-thinking regulator, we would want to look into what digital radio broadcasting could mean for operators and consumers, would mean for public safety communication, especially in moments like Hurricane Melissa. So Bernie, I'll start with you, and then Jorge, from your vantage point, how can digital radio broadcasting strengthen resilience and help broadcasters during and after hurricanes and other natural disasters?
Yes, thank you for the question. And it's something that's also exercising broadcasters here in Europe more and more. You have it more extreme in your region, but in Europe we're experiencing an extreme heat wave and trains are not running. Spain, we don't know what the cause was. Spain had an electrical outage. People had no electricity, no connectivity. So what Melissa exposed for us wasn't really perhaps a total failure of radio as a medium, but maybe a gap in the infrastructure. And, you know, you've mentioned Starlink and social media, you know, picked up and filled some of that void in some areas, but other areas weren't covered. And so when we look at markets that have invested in digital radio infrastructure in Europe and other regions in Africa, whatever, you know, it's a platform that's genuinely resilient. DAB plus networks are engineered for redundancy. You know, they not only have the spectral efficiency where they offer all the stations, but they carry this new feature that has been added in the last 2 years because of a disaster that happened in Germany. And that can carry emergency alerts that are very geographically focused down to 1 kilometre square and wake up receivers, so very, very local, and also with messaging. So listeners don't need a data connection for that feature. So that's quite a critical distinction with broadcast and DAB+. So, you know, when there is a major disaster, we know that the networks get congested if they're available, but broadcast doesn't, you know, and it's just remembering those core benefits. It's not so spicy anymore, it's not fashionable, but it's just a scientific fact, you know, that it's free to air and reaches everyone. And so I think that's
okay.
really what I would say on that one.
All right, so emergency communication is one benefit of digital radio. Spectrum efficiency is another. So Jorge, can you talk more about some of the other benefits, the main value proposition? And also if you can talk briefly on motor vehicles, because we had a discussion about this, that if we're transitioning to digital radio broadcasting, that's something we would have to look into in terms of a policy for the motor vehicles that we're importing. So the value proposition generally for operators and consumers, and that bit about the motor vehicles.
Sure. Thank you for your question. Yes, well, regarding the part of emergency alert, since its launch in 2002, HD Radio has a protocol for emergency alerts to help governments, broadcasters, and listeners to be aware for any kind of relevant activities that include storms, hurricanes, snowstorms, floods, even missing people, because this protocol includes images and texts, and all the HD radio receivers can receive this kind of information. Even these receivers are turned off or are in sleep mode. So that is the part of the emergency alert. In the other hand, of the value proposition of HD radio, we have two parts. One for the listeners and other for broadcasters. In the field of listeners, they receive a lot of advantages with HD radio technology. First of all is the digital sound. Secondly, they have or they can experience what can I say? Information about images, station logo, pictures, album covers, a multimedia experience. So the users can view all the radio station with images, important information, even advertisers' logos. Also, the listeners can enjoy through additional digital channels with different kind of content at the same frequency. So all of these services are broadcasting at the same frequency. It's not necessary to assign a new spectrum, as you said, or a new band. With this, the customer does not have to change their consumption behavior. And also, the broadcasters can reach new audiences with these new additional channels and create new revenue opportunities with this enhanced advertising. So implementing HD radio doesn't necessarily require broadcaster to make large investments. The existing radio station infrastructure, such as antennas, studios, consoles, etc., can be compatible with HD radio. And
so what I'm going to have to do, Jorge, is that what the Broadcasting Commission will do is arrange a dedicated session where you and Bernie can go into details about the different standards and so on. So we have about 9.5 minutes left, so I'm going to move quite quickly. We just dealt with capabilities. Now we need to talk about the fight that we have on our hands. Throughout the other panels, it was pointed out that platforms now control distribution. Algorithms increasingly mediate audience relationships. So I'm going to go with Steve, and then Garfield, and then Al. And the question is, of the three things radio has always owned, content, distribution, and audience relationships, which one must the industry fight hardest to retain? And what does that fight actually look like? Especially for a small operator.
Could you repeat the last part of it, please?
Oh, content, distribution, audience relationships. Which one must the industry fight hardest to retain?
I strongly believe it would be audience relationship. I can speak specifically as it relates to Sun City. We're a community-based radio station, and our audience is primarily, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and we have what drives us really, and that is the relationship that we have. And in addition to the relationship with the audience, what is also equally important is access, So our audience, they own the radio station and they represent us, So we realized that we were able to amplify the relationship by the execution of the access that we would give to our listening audience. So we pretty much have a open door policy here at Sun City, and that is what has worked for us over the years, and it has continued to work with us. Also, where the relationships are concerned, we do a lot of partnerships with the respective communities in and around St. Catherine. So that has really worked for us. And the end game is that we foster a family type relationship.
Okay, and Garfield, what are your views on this trinity, content, distribution, and audience relationships?
Audience relationship is very, very much important. Content is also equally as important. For me, I built a digital platform that was syndicated, right? Right now, I hear in over 30 cities in 7 different countries. And the audience is driven by being able to have the content and have different opinions from different parts of the world, speak of that content. So when I'm broadcasting and when we come together as a community on the radio, I think what drives people and entertains them the most is the fact that they're hearing someone from England who is part of the Caribbean diaspora, the Jamaican diaspora, having the same issues and concerns that they may have in New York or in Toronto, Canada, or in Gambia, and some of the various places that we also broadcast. So the content is key, because you need that content to present to your artists, to present to your audience in order to develop community, right? So I think that those two go hand in hand. For me, I've been very successful with creating community based on being this a platform that spreads wings so wide. You know, I'm more of an international platform as it's supposed to be local. And one of the benefits of digital radio is that it doesn't only give you regional, but you can, you know, the sky's the limit. You can reach people on the other side of the world and bring them in to be part of your programming as well.
Okay, so Garfield, it sounds like there needs to be a conversation among you, Brian, Al, Steve, looking at syndication, having some of their content on your platform and vice versa. Al, what are your views? Content, audience, distribution? I'm hearing you.
Hello?
We're hearing you, Al.
Hello? Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so audience relationships are harder to build and far more valuable. Content can be distributed across many platforms, FM, streaming, apps, podcasts, social media, digital radio, but building trust and a lasting relationship with an audience takes years of consistency, it takes credibility and community engagement. So, you know, once you have earned that trust, your audience will follow you to whatever platform you choose. That is why I believe broadcasters should focus first on strengthening their relationship with listeners, and then use every available platform to distribute that content.
Okay, all right, so we have 3.5 minutes left, so we're gonna wrap up. And the closing question, I'm gonna start with you, Brian. I think you may have started down that path earlier when you made that recommendation about motor vehicles. But if you could ask the government for one practical action in the next 12 months to support radio's relevance, its future, its resilience, etc., beyond tax relief, of course, what would that be? Oh, 45 seconds.
You got it. I was a co-author of a study by UNESCO for media resilience. The government has it. If they implement the recommendations that are there, we will have a very, very resilient and strong and independent industry. So that is what they need to do. The information is there. What we need now is not ideas. What we need is action. And this was, like I said, a UNESCO-funded study. And it was designed to look on small countries around the world and how they can compete against these mega giants in the tech industry.
All right, so we need to look for that study. Steve, one practical action you'd like to see from the government in the next 12 months?
As it relates to government-wise, I would love to see the media be able to benefit from the PIR, that's the productive input relief. As it is right now, it is primarily the hotel tourism, manufacturers, agriculture that really benefits from it. So what the PIR really is, it's a fiscal benefit that would allow waivers for importation, deferment of GCT, so on and so forth. As it is right now, I also know that JAMPRO is a part of that as it relates to the creative industry. But I believe that the media by itself needs to be a part of the PIR. So that's something I'd love to see advocated to the government.
And Al, quickly, what action would you like to see the government take?
only in regulating the industry, but also in establishing its growth as broadcasters as we navigate rapid changes. We need a regulatory framework that encourages innovation while protecting the public interest. So support practical digital transition. I would say maintain a level playing field. Facilitate industry collaboration. The Commission can, continue to bring broadcasters, technology providers, and other stakeholders together.
Right, together. So we'll definitely do that. All right, Bernie and Jorge, from your vantage point outside of Jamaica, what is one enabling action you have seen other governments take that made a meaningful difference for broadcasters? So you can go ahead, Bernie, and then Jorge, you follow. So Bernie, that's from your perspective outside Jamaica, one action that you have seen other governments take that made a material difference for broadcasters.
Well, first of all, very well said by all the other panelists. The points made are spot on what we're hearing across Europe at the minute. There's a piece of legislation going through the European Parliament, the Digital Networks Act, and regulation, mandate that every car that comes into, every receiver, but especially cars that comes into Jamaica or the CARICOM region, that it has broadcast radio as standard. We've had that in Europe now since 2019. 99, really 100% of cars in Europe have DAB plus radio. So the impact of regulation to protect broadcast, to protect radio and broadcast radio, which is doing the heavy lifting.
And over to you, Jorge.
Yes, I totally agree with Bernie. The important thing here is the regulation for different kind of governments. Here in Mexico, we implemented in 2020 a Mexican norm that all the receivers, FM receivers, all kind of receivers, must to receive analog and HD radio digital broadcast. So yes, the government must to do their part to protect the radio and promote the receivers to enhance all the kind of digital broadcast.
Okay, and I'll close with you, Garfield. From your perspective in the digital and diaspora space, is there anything you think that our government could do that would meaningfully help broadcasters in your space, in your world? Or is it a case for the broadcasters to solve themselves?
I feel that in the diaspora, we need more connection to government officials. I think that is what a major problem is for us. Because I'm doing more of an internet-based platform, I don't really have that type of regulations and stuff with the government. My thing for right now is pretty much kind of free flow, right? We don't have much restrictions. We basically use our discretion in knowing how traditional radio has been presented and how we would like to present modern day radio. Kind of toting that line to be very careful, but still be fresh and young and energetic. What I think the diaspora needs is a little bit more access to being able to speak to the government officials in Jamaica, people who are making the decisions, people who are involved in a lot of the happenings that happen there. I think the diaspora is very concerned about the ins and outs of some of the things that we read about in the papers or we see on social media. And we would like to have the access, as the Jamaican radio broadcasters have that access to talk to certain decision makers, in order for us to feel comfortable with what's going on back home. So I think that the government in Jamaica
needs to make
themselves
the main point for you,
to
Garfield.
foreign media, diaspora media. I think that would really help build people's confidence and continue the connection with those who live in the States, who very much care about what's going on in Jamaica.
All right, so I had 40 minutes. I think we are now at the 43rd minute, so I'll be wrapping up, and I want to say thank you to all the panelists, both in person and online, for what was a rich, forward-thinking discussion. Dr. Carell, back to you.
I absolutely enjoyed this particular panel. Could we kindly give them another round of applause? Thank you to our panelists in person as well as those online. Jorge, I don't know if you are there or if you can hear me. If you still can, felicidades a Mexico, viva Mexico. So I want to thank Brian in particular because I didn't know that thing about the car, which is why it's so important to be in rooms where you can exchange knowledge. And right now we have a lot of cars, a lot of cool aesthetic features, but certainly I did not know that when it came to access to frequency, I just did not know that that was a problem. And considering we're talking about critical infrastructure and media being just that, that is something that we really do need to look at. So thank you so very much. What was said is that we don't want too much talking, we want action. And that with everyone doing podcasting, why aren't we protecting radio? Thank you so very much.